How did it all begin? Or did it all begin? Is there a cause, a reason for the universe? While we cannot directly observe how the universe began, or even if it had a beginning, we can think scientifically about these questions and base a hypothesis on the observable evidence. We can even test our hypothesis and decide if the results support it. Scientific thinking draws conclusions from actual experiences and observations and seeks to avoid unevidenced assumptions and beliefs. But, like I said, we cannot directly see the cause of the universe because we were not there when it was caused, assuming it was. And in case the universe was never caused, in case it just has always been, we cannot see back into eternity past to verify this. Nevertheless, I would like to propose that the thoroughly self-similar nature of reality gives us strong reason to think that what we can observe about the subject of origins in this universe accurately informs our thinking about the origin of the universe itself. Let me explain. Self-similarity is seen where a part of an entity looks like the whole of it. A number of examples indicate that this universe is thoroughly self-similar. An atom is a nucleus with electrons orbiting. Atoms make up a solar system with a star at the center and planets orbiting. Solar systems make up a galaxy, which has a supermassive center with stars, etc. orbiting. That's self-similarity, when a subset looks like the superset containing it. The waves of the sea have little waves upon them. Your body has 5 appendages, 2 arms, 2 legs, and a head. The head is significantly shorter and special. Your hand has 5 appendages. 4 fingers protrude approximately parallel to each other, whereas the thumb is special, protruding nearly perpendicular to the rest. You may have heard of the self-similarity of a fern frond. The fern frond is made of many little side frondlets, which look just like the overall leaf. Once you begin to notice self-similarity, you will find that the natural examples are endless. Truly, our universe isn't so much based on the geometry of squares, circles, and triangles, as it is based on the geometry of fractals and the principle of self-similarity. Now consider with me a set which includes 2 entities, our universe and its cause. This set has as its most obvious subset our universe. Given that we see such self-similarity in our universe, and given that the very nature of self-similarity is to extend the manner of something to the superset it is a part of, we would expect the superset containing both our universe and its cause to be essentially like its subset, our universe. This is solid justification for hypothesizing an answer to the question of our universe's origin based on observations about origins, observations that we can make right here where we are. Now, did the universe even have a beginning? This is the first question. Nearly all the objects in my personal experience are known to have a finite age, and an infinite age is not observable. So hypothesizing the universe to be infinitely old is unevidenced by observation. Furthermore, astronomers have made observations indicating that the universe is expanding, and have suggested this implies an explosive point and time of origin, a beginning. So in respect for actual science, I should hypothesize that the universe indeed had a beginning. I can observe that every cause I've ever observed has been a something, not a nothing. I have never observed anything come from nothing and for no reason. Therefore, I should hypothesize that the universe had a tangible reason for its beginning. To believe that the universe exploded forth out of absolutely nothing for no reason would be wholly unscientific. Such a belief would be contrary to all observable evidence. I can observe that every origin I've ever observed has been more complex than the entity it caused. For example, a human mother brings forth a less complex baby. Note the baby's lack of brain development and its corresponding simplicity of thought compared to that of its mother's. A human father may create a computer program, but no matter how sophisticated it is, that program never comes close to the complexity of the father's brain. Printers produce less complex printed pages. I could give countless examples. The second law of thermodynamics states that the total entropy or disorder of an isolated system must always increase over time during any spontaneous process. This law makes perfect sense given our observation that more complex and orderly causes produce less complex, more disorderly results. Therefore, I should hypothesize that the cause of the universe, was more orderly and more complex than the universe itself. To believe otherwise, that the universe somehow evolved its present state of order and complexity from states of lower complexity and greater disorder, would be wholly unscientific. Such a belief would be contrary to all observable evidence. So what could be more orderly and complex than the universe? What could have caused it? Well, to be more complex than the universe is to be more complex than the most complex thing we observe in the universe, the human brain, and the sentience it contains. Therefore, I should hypothesize that the cause of the universe must at very least have been a sentient mastermind. At this point, many questions may spring to mind, but let's not get ahead of ourselves. I think the question we should ask next is, did this mastermind merely cause the universe and then abandon it, walking away? Or is this mastermind still involved with his, her, or its creation? And if so, to what extent is the involvement? Towards hypothesizing an answer, we make more observations. As far as modern science can observe, the fundamental laws of nature apply consistently across the observable universe. For example, light and spectroscopy from galaxies billions of light years away show the exact same atomic signatures and behaviors as they do on Earth, indicating that chemistry, gravity, and quantum mechanics operate under the same rules everywhere we can observe. But what is a rule or law, and where does one exist? While a rule or law can be obeyed and thus demonstrated in the material world, and while it can be represented in writing within the material world, a rule or law is fundamentally just an idea, and thus can only exist in a conscious mind. Of course, the overall set of all the laws of nature is vast and highly complex. The existence and nature of it, as such, confirms our hypothesis of the existence of a conscious mastermind. Just such a mind is needed to contain this set of laws and enforce them consistently throughout the universe as we observe. So we should hypothesize that the mastermind who caused our universe continuously keeps it all in mind and consistently maintains its functionality throughout. Unimaginable intelligence and power on display. We have thus far essentially hypothesized, based on observations that can be made, the existence of a god or gods who created the universe and continuously uphold and maintain it. A divinity such as that described in one of the world's bodies of sacred literature. Now this is the part I get very excited about. I want to now show you a series of mathematical observations which visually indicate which holy book the God who holds in mind nature's laws, which holy book this God is behind. Please consider the following short video I put together 5 years ago to present these observations.
I've been especially interested in the subject of mathematics ever since my very first day of school, and when I was a teen, I read astrophysicist Dr. Livio's book, The Golden Ratio, purely out of curiosity. What I learned from the book was that this number, known as the Golden Ratio, is a true wonder of the known universe, so much so that mathematicians also call it the divine proportion. And this special ratio has been known to the scientific community for a very long time. To quote from Livio's book, the first clear definition of what later became known as the Golden Ratio was given around 300 BC by the founder of geometry as a formalized deductive system, Euclid of Alexandria. Euclid defined a proportion derived from a simple division of a line into what he called its extreme and mean ratio. In Euclid's words, a straight line is said to have been cut in extreme and mean ratio when, as the whole line is to the greater segment, so is the greater to the lesser. In other words, if we look at the figure above, line AB is clearly longer than the segment AC. At the same time, the segment AC is longer than CB. If the ratio of the length of AC to that of CB is the same as the ratio of AB to AC, then the line has been cut in extreme and mean ratio, or in a golden ratio. One of the most well-known two-dimensional embodiments of the divine proportion would be a geometric entity known as the golden rectangle. And to quote Dr. Livio again, let us now turn our attention to the golden rectangle. The lengths of the sides of the rectangle are in a golden ratio to each other. Suppose we cut off a square from this rectangle, as marked in the figure. We will be left with a smaller rectangle that is also a golden rectangle. The dimensions of the daughter rectangle are smaller than those of the parent rectangle by precisely a factor of the golden ratio. We can now cut a square from the daughter golden rectangle, and we will be left again with a golden rectangle, the dimensions of which are smaller by another factor of the golden ratio. Continuing this process ad infinitum, we will produce smaller and smaller golden rectangles, each time with dimensions deflated by a factor of the golden ratio. If we were to examine the ever-decreasing in size rectangles with a magnifying glass of increasing power, they would all look identical. The golden rectangle is the only rectangle with the property that cutting a square from it produces a similar rectangle. Draw two diagonals of any mother-daughter pair of rectangles in the series, as in the figure, and they will all intersect at the same point. The series of continuously diminishing rectangles converges to that never-reachable point. Because of the divine properties attributed to the golden ratio, mathematician Clifford A. Pickover suggested that we should refer to that point as the eye of God. Later in the book, Livio presents the spiral that nests within any golden rectangle. The logarithmic spiral and the golden ratio go hand in hand. Examine again the series of nested golden rectangles obtained when you snip off squares from a golden rectangle. If you connect the successive points where these whirling squares divide the sides in golden ratios, you obtain a logarithmic spiral that coils inward toward the pole, the point by the intersection of the diagonals, which was called fancifully the eye of God. Often the diagonals, spiral, and rectangle are presented together as a unit. A quick search in Google Images of the term golden rectangle will demonstrate as much. Now I am telling you all this by way of very brief yet necessary introduction to a simple discovery I made in 2011 while pursuing my PhD in mathematics. Though simple, that discovery has continued to amaze, delight, and assure me ever since. But before I show you, I should say that this discovery would likely not have come had I not already been well read in the Christian Bible. That is because the discovery began with dual realizations. First, that two golden rectangles brought together form a heart shape, and second, that the square must be one of the most sacred geometric shapes in biblical literature, given that the city of God, the ultimate destination of Christian saints, is described as being square in Revelation 21:16. Realizing all this, I quickly slid two golden rectangles together until they formed a square. And there was the heart. It made me wonder, did the heart shape represent love as early as the beginning of geometric reality itself? And what figure stood inside that heart? A robed stick figure with arms outstretched? A being of and in love? Or could that be Mount Zion with beams of light streaming from its pinnacle? Bringing in another part, the image suddenly appears so much like two tables of stone on Mount Sinai, or perhaps the law written on the innermost parts of the robed saint. Perhaps it was a day or two after I put together the first divine proportion rectangles that another idea came to me. The square I was thus far impressed by was not completely symmetrical. The obvious improvement to it would come from the addition of more golden rectangles in new orientations to make a square of perfect symmetry. And thus I came upon what I like to call the seal square. Having mathematical existence, whether or not humans ever discover it, the seal square is the most symmetrical square possible, composed from nothing but divine proportion rectangles. And having discovered this beautiful geometric entity, I began noticing different layers and shapes within. I can hardly wait to show you, for I believe these visually prove the seal square to be unspeakably meaningful. First, I would like to point out that the square contains 12 main quadrilaterals surrounding a central square. I am reminded of the 12 Hebrew tribes encamped around the sanctuary complex in the wilderness of Sinai, and of the 12 apostles surrounding Jesus Christ. The seal square contains one of the most recognizable and biblical symbols of Judaism, the 7-branch candlestick. And it also contains one of the most recognizable and biblical symbols of Christianity, the fish. Jesus said to his disciples in Matthew 4:19, "Follow me, and I will make you fishers of men." Interestingly, 2 such fish images double as the arms of a very human-like figure in the seal square. 4 such figures appear to be embracing each other in a globe-like huddle. The water droplet shapes within make me think of a water planet inhabited by water beings, a planet such as Earth. At another level, a fiery star of seraphim appear. What do I mean by seraphim, you ask? Isaiah 6:2, and above it stood seraphim, or angels. Each one had 6 wings. With 2 he covered his face, with 2 he covered his feet, and with 2 he flew. And then there is this. Strangely, I did not notice the crucifix until more than 5 years after my initial discovery of the seal square. Yet having seen it, the dominant image in this square ever after will be Jesus Christ on the cross for me. Indeed, God, the creator of mathematical reality, so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish, but have everlasting life. John 3:16. I would remind you at this point that what you are looking at has nothing to do with human artistic skill. In composition, it is nothing more than golden rectangles and their associated diagonals and spirals collaged together to form the most symmetric square possible. Altogether, a geometric reality existing whether or not humans ever discover and depict it. I would also like to here remind you of what mathematician Pickover suggested we call the infinity hole of the golden spiral, the eye of God. How appropriate! In the seal square, we here see it to be the eye of Jesus Christ. And after these things I saw 4 angels standing on the 4 corners of the earth. And I saw another angel having the seal of the living God. Revelation 7:1-2.
So based on these observations, I think it most reasonable to hypothesize that the God of the Christian Bible created and still maintains our universe and all that is within. An astounding hypothesis, yet it is very testable by experimentation. If this specific God of the Bible exists, he can be directly called upon for personal confirmation, as he says in the Bible. In Jeremiah 29:13, we see the God of the Bible promise, "And you will seek me and find me when you search for me with all your heart." In chapter 33, verse 3 of the same book, God says, "Call to me, and I will answer you, and show you great and mighty things, which you do not know." In Matthew 7:7-11, we read, "Ask, and it will be given to you. Seek, and you will find. Knock, and it will be opened to you. For everyone who asks receives, and he who seeks finds, and to him who knocks it will be opened. Or what man is there among you who, if his son asks for bread, will he give him a stone? Or if he asks for a fish, will he give him a serpent? If you then, being evil, know how to give good gifts to your children, how much more will your Father who is in heaven give good things to those who ask him?" We can directly ask the God of the Christian Bible to confirm his existence to us personally, and then expectantly watch for a supernatural response from an all-knowing, all-powerful, all-loving God. His response to such a request, which will certainly come, should be taken as sufficient basis for belief, a belief based on observation, as real science enjoins. I know he will answer such a request in an observable way, because I have seen him do so for me again and again. I know him to be the true God. Real science tells me he is.